Yeah,
We're gonna keep
Q&A
this going
time.
as long as we keep it going. Walter, you're gonna copy paste into
I'll
our
just read
questions,
him.
or
I'll
should
just read him. I'll just read it right from here. So
Oh,
so the
but
first.
we'll lose them eventually. I'll
No, no,
start
no.
copy
I got it.
pasting.
I got it. So the first question: where can I get baptized into the Church of God Given? There is a sheet right behind me, folks. This nice sheet that's hanging up. I literally just take that down. There's a door there, and that's where my altar is. So yeah, just come find me in somewhere in New York State, and you can be baptized in the Church of Forgiven. It's officially a tax-free organization. I'm dead serious. It's a tax-free organization. I don't pay any taxes. I'm just like Donald Trump. Woohoo!
Hey man, if John Oliver can form a religion, you can too. Don't let your memes be dreams.
Actually, that was
That's
a
all I'm
book
saying.
written by Stephen Colbert called "I Am America and So Can You."
Yeah, I've read that book.
It's
It's a lovely
it's a
book.
fantastic book.
Everything Stephen Colbert is pretty
It's a
wonderful.
fantastic book.
Yardy asks, which team are you going to remove from the from Group C for KT? This was a question I asked during the break for those of you who were sticking around, just as a nice little thought experiment. The idea was if we had the fourth place Korean team, which would have been KT Rolster, and we put them in Group C because we already have Koreans in all three groups. Do you think that they would be the number one seed? When I posed that question, any of them. Replace any of those teams. Probably INTZ's the easiest. We say that let's say only one wildcard team made it through. I think Albus Knox was still the best wildcard team, so I'm fine saying that INTZ doesn't get out. And
I don't think the best wildcard team was here, but okay.
Yeah, I think
I watched
Leon
that
Gaines-
entire tournament. Leon
know.
was by far the better team. They just got. I think that Albus Knox just had the right play style to beat them. That was my thoughts on that.
I think that Leon Gaming had some flaws that we've seen from them in multiple international tournaments before. And while I think they did very well for who they were, I was surprised to see it happen. I would not expect it to happen again. But, who knows? Maybe, maybe Leon Gaming will come back next year and surprise me. But either way, whoever you replace in Group C, I think they were better than any of the teams that were in Group C. I think that the gap between Korea and everything else, if we've learned anything from Samsung Galaxy, that's just where things are right now. And, I'm sorry to say it, but that's just, there are a lot of really good teams in Korea. And until Riot helps lower those barriers, more international tournaments, more ability for teams who really think that they can handle that kind of environment and get the chance to play at that level, well, we're going to have a hard time here. Walter, what's the next question? I've been saving them on the
So the next question I see is at Rough Dress Podcast. Will you guys do a fan meetup in New York? I would love to meet you guys in person. My birthday is October 23rd, which is that Sunday. So I'm coming down with a couple of friends. I know Chase is coming to take his cousin, I think, to the show. So I am sure sometime. I know definitely Saturday night I will be going out to enjoy myself, and Chase is absolutely welcome to that. But yeah, if you guys want to meet either of us, just ping us on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll come say hi to you guys. I want to be
sure
recognized and have a fan take a photo with me. That would make me so happy.
When we're at the event, I'm sure in between games, Walter and I can ping you guys. Let us know where we are. At the very least, you want to ping either of us individually on our social media. I'll be on my Twitter the entire time.
Yep, same.
I can't promise that during the games I'm going to be.
Oh, I'll be watching.
I'm going to be watching the games, and during the breaks, my number one focus, I'm taking my 14-year-old cousin Claire. She's just gotten into League of Legends. She's the one who loves Fizz, if you remember that particular episode of the podcast. Try not to hold that against her too much. She just likes, we have the freaky fish lane where I play Nami, and she tries to have the shark pop out of the wave at the same time. That's how, kind of her depth as far as quality of play goes. But that's going to be my priority during that time. But after that, anytime after the tournament, and if you want to grab a quick picture, just say hi or whatever else during, like I said, just ping us. We'll definitely be around, and we'd love to meet as many of you guys in New York as possible. So that would be very cool.
Absolutely.
Rastaduppy asks, so what made the 70-minute Flash Worlds versus Cloud9 a fiesta and the 70-minute Albus Nox versus Rocks not a fiesta? I think the key difference there is how we got to the 70-minute mark. Albus Nox versus Rocks, we got there because Rocks kept making insanely intelligent plays. They knew how to defend very well. Their vision around the Baron pit was on point, so they could always contest these things. Yes, Albus Knox rushed a couple things here and there, and I think it's safe to say that they did not by any means play a perfect game. But what was happening is the team that was behind was making plays to come back and win and was doing so effectively, whereas the team that was ahead was trying to make plays and was still winning team fights, and they defended very well so that it wasn't something where it was like a snowball effect. You never saw, Albus Knox at many attempts could have fallen apart, but they still initiated and team fought well and got some picks and everything else. It was a very close game through and through. Flash Wolves versus Cloud9 was a fiesta because for 68 minutes, Flash Wolves were the better team, but couldn't figure out how, as a winning team, to make a play on anything. They would get Barons and do nothing with them. They would get Elder Dragons and do nothing with them. They were afraid to dive. They were afraid to make plays. It's a passive scaling into the 70th minute, not an active back and forth into the 70th minute. It's that passiveness that made it such a clown fiesta, because at the end of the day, Flash Wolves is so passive and so unwilling to make a play that it means that all that has to happen is Meteos makes one Lee Sin kick and they lose the entire game. Honestly, that to me is so much worse than a really tight back and forth that involves multiple Baron steals and both teams actively trying to make plays off the map than a passive, we're just going to farm and farm and farm and farm, and we got Baron, but we take one tower and then we're done, and we won't even push for an inhibitor because we're scared, and then we farm, and oh my god, Cloud9 made one play and the game was over.
So to me, it was that Albus Knox and Rocks understood what the win condition was for Albus Knox. Albus Knox was not a siege team. They were not a tower tanking team. It was very much a team fight team. You have some pretty short range auto attacks with the Lucian and the Vladimir. Sure, you have some good zoning tools to go underneath the tower, but you're talking about Syndra, Alistar, Caitlyn, Trundle. Lee Sin's very good once he can get around the flanks. So that was Albus Knox kept trying to pull Rox Tigers out of their base to fight them because that is where they were strongest, and Rox Tigers refused to. That is why it went on for so long. Rox had very good wave clear. They just kind of refused to come out and fight Albus Knox, and once they had the tools to get in there and they really said, okay, you know what, screw it. What do we have to lose? That's when they were able to finally take down some towers, take down some inhibitors, and just kind of steamroll through the game. Because once you get those inhibitor towers down, Caitlyn traps are not effective in front of your Nexus. They can pick which tower they want to go after. They can pick which side they want to go up. And unlike the entrances into the inhibitor towers, there's not walls on either side that you can funnel the enemy team into. So that, I think, was just both teams really understood their win conditions. They really were playing smart. Well-calculated play. Flash Wolves versus Cloud9 was neither team understood what they needed to do to win. And, that was just what it came down to. It was a lack of understanding on what their win conditions were, and they were just too scared to execute it, because at some point in a game, any type of game, it could be Monopoly, it could be checkers, it could be League of Legends, it could be the Super Bowl. At some point in a game, you get to a point where you go, I don't want to lose. We've been playing this so long, it's been such a close game, I don't want to lose, and you stop realizing you have to make a play to win. And you just get to the point where you're hoping for the enemy team to, whoever you're playing against, to make a mistake. And when both teams are playing like that, neither team is going to make a mistake. And finally, as Chase said, and as everyone's joked, finally Meteos got a kick that worked. Finally he was able to get in there and make something work. So I think it was just sloppy. I think it was sloppy, scared play on Flash Wolf and Cloud9's part, and I think Rox and Albus Knox just showed an understanding of their compositions and of macro play that, that's it. That's basically it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Glad you found that insightful, Prasadepi. I'm glad we could thoroughly answer that question.
Forgiven has the highest CS per minute and lowest deaths per minute of all Worlds players. Just thanks for pointing that out. Yes, Esports DS.
That's not a question, but
it's not a question. It's
Walter needed to read it.
He's one of two. He's one of two players to actually have double-digit CS per minute. I can't remember the other one. I think it's Bang, to be honest. But only 2 players are above 10 CS per minute.
Yeah,
so,
no, it's
your Lord and Savior.
Look, he's playing his heart out. It's been an amazing performance so far. I want to see him do it when he's not playing in what arguably was the weakest group of the tournament. But I think very highly of his performance in this tournament. I might not like him as a person, but as a player, he is damn talented. I just realized we're not recording this later, so we can use curse words again.
I'm recording it to put it up on our YouTube.
Oh, you're putting it up on the YouTube? Oh, that's so nice of you, man.
I figured we might as well. This
Okay.
isn't sponsored, actually, so we can still put it up, but yeah.
Yeah, no. So are we allowed to use curse words? Because, I mean, you dropped a dick earlier on in the whole thing. I let it slide.
I don't care. Go ahead.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
whatever.
Cool. Just try to be more natural for the folks at home. We do well to try to be professionals.
Next question.
Yardies are at the 10. Are you getting that Cloud9 flare gifted, JK lol? If we had flares for this channel, I would totally gift you a flare. Unfortunately, I think that comes by having way more subscribers than we do. Yeah. And did you say we don't even have a subscribe button yet?
That you have to get partnered with Twitch. You have to have like 100 viewers for X amount of time and a bunch of like there's steps that you have to do with Twitch. On YouTube, it's super easy. You just make a channel and you send an email, or you press a button, say I want to make money off this channel, and they go okay, just follow these rules. But yeah, no, here following is basically the same thing as subscribing on YouTube. It's just you get notified when we're live, when we upload stuff. That kind of stuff.
And honestly, that's all we can ask for you guys for now. If you follow, and you know what, if you like what we do and you think you have friends that would also like what we do, tell them about us.
Absolutely.
That's the one
Word
thing.
of mouth.
I've gotten that question before of what can we do to help the pod. It's very simple. Tell people we exist. We are content creators. We are not marketing majors. Word of mouth means the world in this kind of industry. It's what builds a reputation. And we appreciate every single one of you guys that comes out. And, if you bring if every single one of you brought even one friend, and then they brought one friend or whatever else, it's amazing how quickly this kind of thing grows. So we appreciate you guys for being here and all that kind of thing. And one day we'll hopefully have flair for you. It'll be me with my hands in my face whenever the LMS comes up, and it'll be Walter with his hands up, the God-given, Hope for EU picture that's been on all over social media. You want to take the next question?
Yeah, so next question from King Roman 5. When we have another Korea versus Korea finals, does it diminish viewership outside of Korea? And if this trend continues, will LoL be the next iteration of StarCraft, and will CSGO gain popularity gain popularity in the West due to more Western dominance? So I'll answer this in 3 parts. Will it diminish viewership outside of Korea? Of course it will. It absolutely will. There are plenty of people I have this feeling too, but I watch it because I enjoy the game and enjoy analyzing the game. It really sucks seeing Korea versus Korea year in and year out. But you know what? If you want the best teams, you're kind of stuck with it. I would love to see Albus Nox or H2K make it to the finals. I have my problems with Cloud9 liking certain people in the organization, but if Cloud9 made it, I'd be ecstatic. If RNG or EDG made it, it was against Samsung, I would still love it. I'm still going to watch it, but it will definitely hurt viewership. I don't think LOL will become the next version of StarCraft. I think it is way too strong of a game just in terms of the amount of people who play it, and Riot nipped the regional thing in the bud early. StarCraft waited a very, very long time to do anything about it, and by that time, the West was so turned off on the game that it is what it is right now. And I think CSGO is more popular in the West because of Europe, because it's going all the way back to Counter-Strike. It's been immensely popular in Europe. I think shooters are just more popular in the West, period. We've always had a strong CSGO, Call of Duty, Halo scene. We see Overwatch is exploding, and even though the Koreans are really getting on it, at the beginning it was primarily North American and European organizations. So I don't think it's a CSGO thing. I think it's just shooters are just more popular in the US and in Europe, just because, especially in the US, our obsession with guns. We love guns.
Let's not forget that Crossfire is one of the most popular esports that's in Korea and China. They just play different shooters than we do.
Yeah,
and
sure.
We can make arguments as to why that is. I think a lot of it has to do with Valve did a very poor job of advertising to Asia for a while. It's why we're just now getting Korean Dota 2 teams. They did a very poor job when
well,
that game
Steam
first came out.
Steam was hard
appealing.
to get into Korea and China in the first place. So
It was, yeah, and that's something that, you have to look at Valve and why that happened. I mean, look, CSGO is going to keep gaining popularity because more money's being infused into it. You get things like E-League that are putting it on TBS. There's a lot of great things going on in CSGO right now, and the parity is at a point where every tournament is fun to watch. Now, I happen to be of the opinion that there's an oversaturation of tournaments. I think the number of events that are being put on a monthly basis are unsustainable for the vast majority of organizations. And I think that will eventually change, but that doesn't mean that it's going to change overnight, or that it's going to be necessarily a good or bad change. It's just going to be a change. As far as, I have a slightly different opinion than Walter. I think if it's a Korea versus Korea finals, it's not going to change too much. Let's face it, we've had in North America and Europe haven't made it to a finals in season 2. The LCS is still growing pretty much every split. Even this split, they played way more games. The numbers were not quite as high, at least from what you would think, but a lot of that has to do with, one, the YouTube streaming ended up taking over Twitch at certain points. YouTube has gotten a lot better at streaming these kind of events, and people, have frustrations with Twitch. And since there's now a reasonable alternative outside of Azubu, the numbers have been more evenly spread. Not, even, certainly, but more evenly spread than you'd think. VOD watching has increased dramatically. The number of views that you'd see on VODs if you go to, the LOL event VODs, YouTube or whatever else, people are spending a lot of time catching up on their favorite teams at least. So I don't think the viewership is dropping that much in the West. And with the amount of new money that's being brought in here, the 76ers are going to start advertising this stuff. I think that franchising is going to be huge, and we're almost certainly getting that, because otherwise we wouldn't see these big financial groups investing in League. There's too much money in it. There's too much advertising in it. The personalities and the popularities, that come with these streamers. I think they do I think they're going to be just fine, because, people want to see their favorite players, and their favorite players are still the ones that stream on Twitch and, speak in English, and the Cloud9 memes and all these hardcore fan bases that have been built up. I think it's going to be just fine. And for the record, as someone who still avidly watches StarCraft's having a little bit of a resurgence. Neeb just won the 2016 Kespa Cup. First time a foreigner's won a Korean tournament in 16 years. Shout out USA, all that fun stuff. But more importantly, the viewer numbers for last year's StarCraft Championship, now that Blizzard's finally making changes, has increased significantly. It actually did better than the Heroes of the Storm World Championship, despite the fact that Heroes of the Storm was much more widely advertised unless you were already a StarCraft fan. So I think that scene is getting better. I think that, we'll see if they continue to handle it well. Blizzard and esports, they've made some very weird decisions in the past. Riot made a lot of weird decisions in the past, but I think Tencent's whipping them into shape, because there seems to be a lot of good news down the pipeline. Walter, you can replace Immortals with Cloud9 or CLG.
Ooh.
You get to pick, apparently. Does that Immortals team make it out of groups?
Cloud9 or CLG?
I think a lot of it depends on what group you put them into.
The problem is you have to account for then, does Albus Nox Luna play as well as they do in a group with Immortals? And do Flash Wolves play as poorly as they do in a group with Immortals? Like, it's hard to just say straight one-on-one what happens, because you don't know how that impacts the play of other teams in those groups. But what group would have been easiest for Immortals to get out of? I would have put them in Group A. If you replace CLG with them, it's probably easier for them to get out of Group A than it is for Group B.
Yeah, Cloud9 played out of the group for a reason. I don't think that Immortals would have done any better than them necessarily. IMA is one of those teams that had, if you wanted to be Immortals, you wanted to be overly aggressive all the time. IMA lives in the chaos. They were molded by it, raised by it.
I will say, though, this meta would have been perfect for Huni. I think this meta would have been absolutely perfect for Huni, and they would have been an extremely strong team.
Yeah, and Reignovers Olaf would have had to be perma-banned.
Yeah,
you're looking at, Pobelter would have been interesting. I'm not sure how I would.
I think the problem would have been Turtle's champion pool.
Turtle would be in a rough place.
Adrian would have been fine. He would have just kept playing Soraka.
If Karma's been, but Soraka
he would have played
wasn't all that
Soraka.
great.
He just would have played
hasn't
Soraka.
worked.
But there's a difference between everyone else's Soraka and Adrian Soraka. And Adrian Soraka in that team.
Adrian Soraka in NA. I think that's the difference there. I don't believe in it quite as much as you do.
That's fine.
But I think that at the end of the day, the answer is replacing CLG in Group A, because CLG underperformed massively in that group. If Aphromoo plays well and lands any of his Bard ults in the first game, or manages to, not get caught out on some of these Stay-Host ganks and the, pin perfect Graves ults, then they get out of this group. They didn't, so they don't. Sorry. Immortals probably would have been less likely to make those kinds of mistakes. Yardi, what do you think about removing the first split and replacing it with 2 to 3 tournaments? I'm absolutely in favor of it, as long as those tournaments do a good job of allowing mid to lower tier teams in each of these regions a chance to actually participate. Because the problem is, and we've talked about this, we actually talked about this at the beginning of our week 1 recap, if you guys haven't watched that. The gap has closed among the toppest of top teams, but anything underneath these top 3 in North America, it's the same top 3 pretty much all the time. In Taiwan, it's the same top 2. In China, we're seeing a lot of the same teams. Korea, we're seeing a lot of the same teams, Samsung being the new one this year. And KT was this close to being back there again. The best teams just keep getting stronger, because the only time we have these tournaments, it's the best teams playing the best teams, and they learn from each other. And the trickle-down effect, much like trickle-down economics, it does not work as well on on paper as it does in theory. It just hasn't been as good. And honestly, I can see a world in which they organize some really nice tournaments in which it's more of a mix of these mid-tier teams, these, kind of like a mid-card in the WWE, where we allow these teams to, let's have some fun, where like Team Liquid goes up against Jin Air, Longzhu, and whatever else, and just see how they do. Like, this is the kind of thing you would need. It wouldn't be more tournaments where top teams play top teams. That doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't grow the region. It doesn't fix the problem of the LCS. The problem with the LCS is that they need to have, these regions need a lot more help from the bottom. You need the bottom 7 teams that aren't making it to the world stage to be better quality competition, so that they have better scrims, so that the top teams are even that much better. And right now, the divide is just too huge. That's really the problem.
I think if you do the entire spring as regional qualifier type thing, and I would turn the entire summer into a giant World Cup, and have 4 different regions, and have teams play in each one of those different, and choose the 4 big regions, and maybe you take Korea hosts one of the groups, China hosts one of the groups, North America and Europe split every other year, they each hold one of the groups, and then you have Taiwan and the IWC regions that can actually support infrastructure wise host one of them, and they rotate through all that. I'm really sorry to lump LMS in that, but Taiwan's tiny. It's like a little country. And Korea's earned it because it's Korea. So that's not me bashing Taiwan. But then you just have a huge World Cup where you go, okay, so you do 64 teams or whatever, and you all combine, you break them down, and you do a large group stage to get them seeded, and then you put them into an elimination bracket, and then you choose whatever team won the year before, their region holds the top 16. And then you just go from there. I think you can do a giant international tournament like that. That would be really fun. It would give those mid-tier teams, even in wildcard regions, experience. You slot a bunch of seeds to each different region, and you go from there. I think that'd be the coolest, most fun, interesting way that I could do it to help make it entertaining and make it 16, 5 months long essentially.
Well, then what you would do, and you'd do that the second split. So the first split would be seeding.
Yep.
And you'd say maybe the
top, spring split
the top
would be
6 seeds from each of the power regions.
Yeah.
Maybe
LMS you cut their
seeds. You could say
seeds.
4 from Taiwan. Yeah. I'd be fine with that.
4,
if you took 4
and
from
then
Taiwan.
2 or 3 from each of the IWCs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you use spring.
That's a
you use
fun
spring
tournament.
to determine which of those teams make it, and if you want to do a season, fine. If you want to do individual weekly qualifiers, that then you take the top whatever X teams have the most qualifier points, like whatever. I don't really care about that. But then, yeah, you do like the entire summer split and how long Worlds is, which is like 4 to 5 months, and you just have a giant World Cup across the world. That'd be like the coolest thing that I could come up with.
And Yardi, that's exactly what we're talking about. It is like a March Madness kind of stream. It's that kind of idea where we'd have the craziness for these things. Enough teams would get in, when they do the group stage portion of it, you could have these upsets, what if, Jin Air matching up against like Team Liquid and Team Liquid suddenly pulls something out. Well, suddenly, now is Team Liquid, like the storylines would just be so much fun. The reason that will never happen is because visas are a thing. And it would be very hard to have all these people just get up and move for like 5 months of the year. But in a perfect world, that'd be how they do it. And if they ever figured out the logistics of how to do it, if Riot ever makes enough money where they could just buy housing, it's like, here are the gaming houses. You guys don't have to worry about it for this portion of the year. Then we could have the greatest League of Legends tournament known to man. And that would be a lot of fun. We're going to have to start quick hitting some of these because we're getting on there in time.
This is a really easy question for me. So imagine you're Reggie for a minute and chant free LG a few times if that helps. Now, after TSM's failure to get out of the group, do you revamp your roster or do you trust Hauntzer and Baya to get better and make a coaching staff change? I fire Weldon before he even gets off the plane back to LA. Parth, I would keep as an analyst because I think he's incredibly smart and he has really good rapport with the team. I go sign Daylor. If Daylor wants to coach, I bring him in. Yeah. That's literally what I do. I bring in Daylor. I don't want Weldon anywhere near this team anymore.
Yeah, Parth's a fine coach, but if you can get a better coach, that's fine. I trust Biofrost to get better. This was his first split, and they still managed to go 3-3 in one of the toughest groups you could possibly put together. I don't feel like you need to get rid of him. By the way, can you please pronounce the name of the TSM top laner, Walter? For the people at home?
Hauntzer.
There you go. People get really mad at you.
Listen, I have to talk. I have to talk for like an hour here explaining all my thoughts. Like, I'm sorry that I mispronounce it, but it's easier to say Haunters than it is to say Hauntzer. I'm sorry. If it really tilts you that much, imagine I'm saying it correctly.
Look, the Pokemans, it sticks in your head. I get it 100%. DM Top Hat, if you guys were in charge of running the NA EULCS next year, what changes would you do to make it more competitive? Again, this would be hard to do, but I would mix them up. I would do a 20-team league, and I would have EU and NA playing each other, so at the very least we get inter-regional play and different metas can play against each other. You do one split in North America and one split in Europe, so that each region gets to have home field advantage, you could say, for half of the time. And you just have all these teams battling head-to-head every week. Let's say the top 8 get through, so the battle to really stay in would be a ton of fun. Just to see what portion of NA to EU teams get out. You have maybe you open up the borders a bit on how import or whatever else. You can decide that if you want. But as long as you can make the visas work for it, I think it would be a lot more fun and a lot more competitive to see these regions play against each other, because the more metas you get to experience, the better you're likely to get. You're going to learn how to play, because EU and NA, they do play different styles of game. And getting to scrim against each other on a regular basis will mean that both teams get better at not only being able to adapt what makes the other region better, but also learn how to counter it, which is so huge as terms of how things go. And it's one of the reasons why Korea and China are so good, because they scrim each other all the same. Same with Taiwan. They're all right next to each other. They scrim each other all the time if they believe a team is worth it. And that does matter.
I don't think there's anything that you can do in terms of the rules, unless you do something incredible with the structure where you get them playing more international tournaments. I don't think there's a rule. I don't think there's any sort of thing that you can do to magically make everything more competitive. It's unfortunate, but I think it's the teams have to get more efficient at practice, find better ways to utilize 10-man rosters efficiently, yada, yada, yada. I don't think there's something magical Riot can do to make Europe and North America more competitive. It just doesn't exist.
Not unless they break the borders. I'm going to combine these two questions, Walter, because they're from the same person, and I think only you can answer that second one.
Why do I not like Jack? That is not something I can discuss. I have knowledge of a story that unfortunately I can't find proof of, but
I would say there are multiple stories that you've both experienced in person and
There's a couple reasons. One of them that's a little bit more shallow is that when I worked with Cognitive Gaming, their Smite teams were poached, taken. They weren't under contract, but they went to Cloud9 and to TSM in kind of a shady manner that I didn't appreciate. And then there was another story that I just can't talk about that is really bad. I'll tell you guys, it's actually a really bad story if it's 100% true, which multiple sources have told me that it's pretty damn close to the truth.
We're not committing slander anywhere on this podcast, but we have enough reasons to
I will answer this one. Can Cloud9 get stronger, or is it time to make roster moves outside of Meteos? I think Smoothie might be a potential change, but I think Meteos gets replaced by contracts.
Yeah, contracts is almost assuredly
unless the new organization that buys Cloud9 Challenger offers a ton of money for that one player, but I don't understand why they would. So yeah, I think they go with contracts. I think they keep Impact if he wants to stay in North America. Jensen and Sneaky are fine, but yeah, jungle and support positions definitely need to be changed.
Depending on how things go, I think Impact could retire after this split.
He could. That's why I'm saying if he wants to stay in NA, like he should stay with Cloud9. I think that's
I think this is a home for him. I think Sneaky is going to stay in Cloud9 as long as he wants to play. There are a lot of things up in the air. Like Sneaky could decide to be if Meteos is going to be a full-time streamer, Sneaky could do the exact same thing, and they'd both make a heck of a lot of money out of it. And they wouldn't have to deal with the stress of being a competitive player, and they'd probably make more money than they make as a pro player. And the org would love to keep them around forever and ever, amen. So whether they want to make changes or not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure they'll have a choice. I think they might have to. Next question. You gain control of Riot and can sell the esport to any network. Which one and why? I don't know if you're talking about television networks.
That's what I think they're talking about.
Television networks.
TV. Yeah.
I don't really want it going to a TV network.
Oh.
I mean,
I sell it. I sell the rights to it.
Can I sell to HBO?
Yeah,
get
that
really,
works.
really high quality.
That works.
Get like Bill Simmons can be the main guy nowadays on like the analyst desk. We got an entire at any given weekend. It's a spin-off show. Honestly, any TV network that would understand the importance of using the digital medium, any of the typical your network televisions, Fox, CBS, they don't really use it very well. ABC does it by just selling to Netflix. TBS has done a very good job with Counter-Strike.
Turner's been fantastic.
But at the same time, I live in Atlanta. Turner doing fantastically with TBS is the exception rather than the rule, in my humble opinion of how Turner's been running their business lately. But
I think it's you either sell it to ESPN, so Disney, or you sell it to Turner. No matter who you sell it to, they need to have someone at the helm of it that is really into esports, that really understands what esports and esports production really needs. I think off the top of my head, someone like Red Eye would be fantastic. I know this is kind of memeing, but Richard Lewis.
I mean, would we like a commissioner? Would we like a production like E-League? Yeah, who wouldn't?
Absolutely.
E-League's great.
Oh, absolutely. I think someone like Sir Scoots could actually be fantastic if he was in charge of running the production for everything. But yeah, I think your best shots are Turner, because they've proven they can do esports, and with the Counter-Strike League, with E-League, and with Overwatch, and they found some exceptional observers for that actually made Overwatch watchable to me. And ESPN is ESPN. They already have the digital medium set up.
And for the record, if we're going to give E-League credit, we also got to give FACEIT credit, who does all of the behind-the-scenes work for them. That's been the one big thing that's made Turner work, is they understand who's best at producing the content and just let them do their thing.
Yep.
These are going to be the last two questions of the night.
Yeah,
Cyrenos, since you're on the topic of VODs going up, do you think that a lot of that is due to the split screen format? What do you think of the dual screens? Do you think they should go back to single screen? Personally, I loathed it because of the number of casual viewers for teams not named TSM, CLG, or Cloud9, because you had to choose between one of those teams or watching some shitty Echo Fox versus Apex game. I think one of the biggest mistakes Riot made is they stopped taking advantage of Riot Games and Riot Games 2. We had a system in place, and instead it was NALCS 1 and NALCS 2, and they advertised it very poorly. It took me a while when during week 1 to figure out where the games were. And I cover this for a living sometimes. Like this has been a, whether I was head coach or, just, doing this as an analyst and as a freelancer, like I should not be struggling to figure out where you're playing your games. That should not be a thing. And I think they lost a lot of brand recognition that way. That's something they certainly could have handled better, as opposed to, can they do a dual league?
Dual streams.
Dual streams. They have to.
Yeah.
Unless you plan on doing it like the LCK and making it all week long, which would be great, but that would require Riot to. I love the way the LCK does it. I get 1 or 2 games a day, every day. It's never, too much of a hassle. If there's a day I want to skip, I just skip that day. I love the way the LCK does it.
It's so counterintuitive to Western sports, though. Saturdays and Sundays are sports days. That's when you watch sports, unless it's something like the NBA. And because they go on a weekly schedule like this instead of just a game by game schedule, you can't do like it all, throughout the entire course of the week.
The NBA plays games every weekday. The
NHL,
but
that's not
MLB.
A weekly schedule. They don't make those weekly schedules. Like the NFL runs on a weekly schedule.
Well, you know
MLS
what?
runs on a
Neither
weekly
does
schedule.
the LCK. Really, they'd have even an odd number of games every week. I think we should ditch the weekly schedule.
I think
that's my thing.
Think it's too much.
I would absolutely do the OGN model.
It's
it doesn't
too much
change
to
the number
viewers.
of games that are being played.
But it's too much to ask viewers. Like
they already can't watch half the games.
It'll
in
be
this
school
format.
nights. It's going to be school nights. It's going to be work nights. Like there's a reason that they have the games on the weekends. And you're going to be like, but Europe's not on the weekends.
Yeah, Europe's not on the weekends.
I'm talking about North America. I think the way that they advertised changing the streams was awful. But it made sense. I understand why they did it. But no, they can't go back to a single stream setup. It just won't work.
I don't like the idea that Europe's just allowed to get screwed and North America gets to have the perfect Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule because we are based out of North America.
It's run by a North American company. I'm sorry. Tough toodles.
Look, but that doesn't mean it's a good business decision. Your player base in Europe is larger than your player base in North America.
Hasn't
if you
hurt them
gave
yet?
them a well-quality screen, yes, it is.
It hasn't hurt them yet. Not enough that they felt the need to make a change.
Don't know because they've never tried it. As they've said before, they were running the LCS without any intent to make money. They just now realize that they could have advertisements at the World Championship. They are terrible at knowing how to business. So I don't really give them credit for the fact that it hasn't hurt them yet. They have no idea. No one's financially explained anything to them. They just had to explain to Riot Tryndamere that they're not making millions of dollars every year. Like that was they are so out of touch with what is financially the most viable situation. And I trust OGN and the production that they've done for years and years and years to create the best format. And as a viewer who watches day by day and who is very happy to do VODs, I like the Korean format about 1,000% more. It's so much better than dual streams where you are guaranteed not to be able to watch at least half of the games no matter what.
As an analyst, I'm not a fan because that takes up so much more of my week time. I can sit here and...
You just plan your VODs the exact same way. It doesn't change anything. You still have the multiple games on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's just more spread out. And you put your VODs on the days... If you want to make your Saturday and Sunday super huge on games, you just save your VODs for those days. And you watch at double speed, which is better for us analysts anyway. Which, by the way, if you want to know our secret, how do we watch every game? Double speed.
Double speed YouTube VODs. It's
wonderful. Once you know enough of the game and understand it to the level where you can, you'll get there. It makes things a lot easier. Last question, Rasta Dumpy. Will NA eventually find talented players, or will we continue to see the import of talented Korean and European players? Those of you who remember the giant ban wave from about a month and a half ago, will understand and remember that there were a whole bunch of challenger players or master tier players that had all of their accounts just completely wiped because they were caught elo boosting. Riot has created a system in which most of the top tier North American players found it much more profitable to elo boost, account share, all of that fun stuff than to try to make it into the LCS because the barrier to entry was insane. Because of how poorly the challenger scene was run in North America comparatively. Because guys like Cloud9 would stack the deck with that, excuse for a challenger team that was the Cloud9 challenger roster. and to a lesser extent Team Liquid Academy, though at least they tried to throw in a couple younger guys in there, and then Piglet, because of course, like where are those players going to come from nowadays? I don't know. A lot of the people that could have been promising talents decided that League of Legends wasn't profitable for them and aren't there anymore. So where's the new talent coming? It's not in any of the challenger teams that didn't make it into the LCS's split, because those teams looked pretty darn bad. The gap between Cloud9 Challenger and everyone else was pretty massive, with the exception of maybe Team Liquid Academy, which choked pretty hard when push came to shove. I don't know. I don't know what you do. I think Riot has, to a certain extent, irreparably damaged at least this generation's worth of NA talent because of the system that they created. And now they're going to have to work really, really hard to encourage challenger players to keep going, to keep plugging away, to keep trying to make it into the LCS. And again, the player base in North America just isn't as big as it is in Europe. You don't have regional tournaments and regional metas like they do in Europe. It's really, really, really hard if you're an aspiring North American challenger player. And I don't know. I don't see it. I think that it's the lost generation of North American talent. And if they are really franchising things the way that they plan to, I really need to hear what they're going to do about the challenger scene, because Europe's doing just fine on that regard, but North America has some serious fundamental issues that need to be fixed. And if they're going to franchise and make it so that challenger teams can't even have that LCS dream to get in, there's got to be enough stability within the challenger season to justify it. And Riot hasn't succeeded in that yet, so I don't know why you would trust them to this time. But hey, we're getting replays now. Anything is possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, he said everything I have to say. Challenger Series is borked.
Yeah.
There's no reason to play in it. You just saw Team Liquid isn't going to be in it anymore. Like, there's just no reason to be in the challenger scene, and you're not going to build up talent that way. So I'll be very anxious to see what Riot proposes to fix about it. The reason the European one works so well is because they can make it country-based. They can have a Spanish league, they can have a British league, they have a German league. They can do all these things that still promote amateur games, and that just does not exist in North America. Sure, you have a couple of things. You have like the Serpentis League. There was another, like an Imperial League. Like, there's been a bunch of different like small leagues around, but it's not enough for the money that you get. It's not worth the investment of your time, of your energy. And I know I used to work and help run one of those challenger leagues. Like, it's hard, especially when Riot won't be willing to work with you on it.
Yeah.
I remember one time we asked, hey, what's your schedule going to be like around Worlds, I think, so we can, make sure our qualifiers don't interfere, and they wouldn't give it to us. There's just, I understand you don't want to work with third parties people. You're afraid some of that information gets leaked out, but then you have to take up the mantle of, all right, we're going to support this scene. We're going to make sure all this stuff works. And they never did. They kept making all these changes over and over to the Challenger Series, and it just never worked. Nothing ever worked. They wanted to make it more like the LCS. That didn't work. And when you have problems like Dream Team failing to pay their players and shit, and you have all these problems with all these teams not being able to afford it, and all these players signing contracts that they should have no real reason to sign, it's an issue. So until Riot takes responsibility, treats it the same way that they do the LCS, treats the players the same way they do the professional players, there's not going to be any North American talent, because there's no reason to. There's no reason to, grind your way up into Challenger and get yourself, found. You can easily just boost and stream and all that kind of shit. So it's been very disappointing. Very disappointing from Riot, but it is what it is.
It's possibly their biggest mistake that nobody talks about, because it's not a very sexy issue to talk about. But it's there. And, like I said, I was over, coaching a team in Istanbul. I've seen the European scrim channels. I've seen just how many leagues have been able to do their thing. I've seen just how many quality teams have formed, from the Spanish leagues to the German leagues to the Polish leagues, everything else. There's real talent out there waiting to be harvested by, whatever challenger system comes up next for them, because the player base for Europe is massive. And it's not going to matter unless, until they fix the North American side of things, until they make actually playing the game for a competitive purpose more lucrative than ELO boosting, that's going to be that. But that's going to be it for us. Thank you guys so much. This was a really fun Q&A. Really, really great questions from you guys. I'm going to give a shout out since we're putting this on there eventually. I want to give a shout out to the Final Countdown. Looks like he could not join us for the stream today, but he was the winner of my heart this weekend. He did the reverse jinx against TSM that was so clever. Even I didn't realize that he was actually reverse jinxing them. I'm so glad we could spread that onto you guys.
Don't care.
I
got forgiven in Albus Nox. I'm
just saying you have to be proud that we actually got people to understand how to reverse jinx people. And winning some games, he gets our man, well, you tried, because he was so excited for me when AHQ was up 8,000 gold and things then immediately went wrong. So winning some games, if you're listening to this whenever this goes up, I appreciate the attempt, man. But next time, pull the Final Countdown instead. That's what Taiwan needs from you. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're glad you guys enjoyed the show.
It's fun.
We will be doing this next week. We're, again, not sure when. It will probably be about this time, I would imagine. Maybe a little bit later in the week because the semifinals are later in the week. Stay tuned. We'll be doing our Guess the Lines episode for the quarterfinals on Wednesday. That'll go up, probably.
Wednesday or Thursday, one of those two.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, we don't, unlike last week, I don't expect there to be a whole bunch of movement on the lines between, day 1 and day 4 because there's, there aren't as many games being played. I think Unicorn's pretty resistant at that point. So, but we will have that. So YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. You guys have been here long enough. You know what all the things I'm about to plug. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, goodbye, Internet.